In this video, we're going to take a look at F strings, which are formatting strings. It's probably the simplest way to print stuff out in Python. If you know how to print stuff this way, you don't really need to learn any other way to print stuff out. So a normal print statement just looks like this. You print out a string, put in quotation marks. If you want to print multiple things, if I've got a variable like A equals 10, B equals 20, and I do print A comma B, it prints them out with one space in between, and that's pretty much the extent of the formatting with a plain old print statement. Actually, we're still using a print statement, but it's the parameter of the print statement that's going to be different. An F string looks like this: print, and then it's F, and then whatever you want in quotation marks. And if you're just doing an ordinary string like up in the first example here, you don't need an F string. Okay, an F string allows you to substitute variables into the string, and it will replace the variable names with their values, and it also allows you to format those values as well. Okay, so let's do something like, okay, and I want to substitute George into a print statement. Put the name of the variable in curly brackets. Okay. I don't think I need that comma there. Let's go to the end and hit the Enter key. And it substitutes George in. There was a space right before the curly bracket, and that is what shows up here. There was a comma right after it, and the brackets do not get printed out, the whole thing. The bracket is an indicator to the print command that there's something that needs to be substituted in here. Okay. We can also print out numbers. Let's do a count variable equal to 10, and let's do a print with an F string. Oops. Okay, so it should print out the text the count is, and then because this is in curly brackets here, it looks for a variable called count, and it will substitute the value of that variable. So we should get 10 after the word is and before the period at the end. Okay. If we want to print it in, let's say this is in a loop, and we want to print out a bunch of numbers that are aligned underneath one another. You probably wouldn't have the count is in front of it, but you can do and it will right align that number in a 10-column field. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then the blank right there. So if I've got a 2-digit number one time and a 3-digit number the next time, they will all get lined up underneath one another correctly. Floating point numbers are a little bit more interesting. Let's say I've got a variable here called cost equals $10.95, and I want to print that out. I can do this. Okay, so let's take a look at the string before we actually hit the Enter key and print this. The variable here is, the $sign means nothing, it's just that this is a dollar value, so we're going to put that in front of it. So this is the name of my variable, cost, and then I follow it with the field width, and I did not mean to do that. Follow it with the field width and number of decimal places. Now if you put a 0 there for the field width, it will take up just as much as it needs to take up. So if we do this, we've got a blank before the $sign. There's no blank after the $sign, so we should see 10.95 right after it. So with 2 decimal places, obviously, and hit enter, and it looks perfect. Okay. If I want, I'm going to hit the up arrow here so I don't have to type this in again, but let's say I wanted 4 decimal places there, and just hit enter now. I will get it printed out or displayed to 4 decimal places. And again, if I have you know, a $2 or a 2-digit value to the left of the decimal point one time, and I'm in a loop, and I've got 3 digits to the left the next time, and 4 or 5, and the number is going to vary to the left of the decimal point. I want it to all line up on the decimal point. So what you do then is you just do basically the same thing that we did with integers, and that is you specify a non-zero field width. So let's make this 10. 4 of those will be taken up on the right side, and a decimal point will give me a 5th one. So I'll have 5 places left over for the rest of the number, and it ends up looking like that. Okay, let's assign a bigger value to cost. Let's do cost equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.12. Okay. And if I go to print that out, no decimal point, I'm sorry, no comma, just a decimal point. And let's do I want a comma in there. So let's do print F, and then I'm just going to print the number this time. So curly bracket, cost, colon, 10 columns wide, and with a comma, and then with a decimal point and 2 characters after the decimal point. And the F on the end here, which I didn't explain before, is just for floating point. And if you don't put the F in there, you get exponential notation. Okay, and you almost never want that. So let's go ahead and close that off. We should get 10 columns, 2 to the right of the decimal, 1 for the decimal, 1 for the comma, and there should be 6 columns left for the rest of it. Let's go ahead and so yeah, that's the 10th column. And now if the number here is smaller than let's see, I got to do an up arrow. If the number here is smaller than the actual size of the number, let's say I put let's put a 7 in there, and so that would cut off like the 1 and the 2. Let's go ahead and hit the enter key, and it will not truncate the number. Even though I said 7 columns altogether, I'm getting 5, 6, 7. I'm getting 9 columns printed out. So it will override that if that number is not wide enough to display all of the digits of the number that you're trying to print. So you can do strings are easy. Integers are pretty easy. Floating point's the only one that's a little bit tricky, but once you've done a few of these, it's a piece of cake. And this is by far the simplest way to format your output in Python.